as always. And you can see here in the white buttons here, we have our 1, 2, 3 play. And all we want to do is always find the wave 3 and take advantage of the biggest moves. So once the market makers create a interest in the market, they pull back to create a buying zone, right? Which you can see here. This is a very simple play, right? And once they create a buying zone, so here's your move, and then the pullback is a buying zone, right? And then there's a bigger move up, which is how they make their money. And then you have your normal, sells off. This gets a little choppy because this is like retail investors. So this is the first sell off, this is the double top, and then you have the big pullback. Now, the thing about this 1, 2, 3 pattern that we're going to teach you, the super trade, or just show you, what can help you be more successful, is once you understand that there's going to be this super trade pattern, and this is something we developed by tracking how the market makers make money, how they manipulate, how they use the market patterns. Basically this is the market maker pattern, and this is the super trade pattern, okay? So think of it like this. If the patterns you learn, which are candles and regular patterns, then they know what you're thinking, and they just trade against what you're thinking, and then that keeps you off balance, and then that makes you emotional trader. So what you have to learn is what patterns do they actually care about, and they are not going to make it complicated. It's called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Right? That's simple. Right? It creates liquidity, all these things. But here's how it goes. It's a pattern that we can track, and then the way to actually make money on the pattern really comes down to understanding the how to use how to use tools to make your ability to use the patterns better. Okay, and that's something that we teach and show in other things, right? It's a little more, but this is just a basic thing for you guys on TikTok, so you can see some ways to protect yourself, or at least understand that if you're trading with the market makers, then you're probably trading in a good position, and the odds of being successful are 10 times better than if you're doing it emotionally. So I hope that makes sense to you. So let's hit that like button. We need to get to 10,000 likes. Keep pounding them out. Everybody hit the like button, man, and share the live. Let's go. Share the live. Share the live. Share the. Thank you, Emily, for sharing the live. Let's go. Share the live. Right? I knew I was being manipulated. Yeah, Mike and little Benny. Yeah, markets and everything have to be emotional, and that's how they keep you off balance. Okay, so here we go. When you have this move, you have an up move, one move up, move down, buy zone, and then the trade that we want to make, a nice big trade. Now once that consolidates, right, and creates another opportunity, like right here, then it becomes another situation where we're looking again for the same thing, right? So we're looking for those moves. And a lot of times these moves are put together by what we call our setup tools, right? So we know that setting up a trade, and let me pull up another trading view here so that we can get to another chart here, and kind of like show you like some of the setups and things that are important. And we have created indicators and um, indicators that allow us to understand um, what's important or what creates the actual move, right? So most indicators are going to react to what the market makers are already doing, right? Now it looks like right here, it looks like we have a 4-hour moon, but more than likely that 4-hour moon is going to reject and head the other direction, but we're not. But that could be a interesting scenario. Okay, so and that's something we have to watch because we might not be done with this pullback. All right, so here we are. If you guys got in, like we were talking about the long as soon as we got in here, so we got a nice 26. We like to take profits percent. We like to take profits. Not like I said, not financial advice, but we just like to take profits. Right, not a bad start to the day, but we like to take profits on all the moves. And a lot of people don't understand that the market goes up and down. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter how you emotionally feel about it. You have to understand that there's going to be moves that are made, and that's just how it is. Is that people buy a position and a low, and they sell a position at a high. And most of the time, what's happening is people bought a opposite position, meaning like how it's going long. Most people were going short from this area here, and it bounced on them, and they got liquidated, which caused the market to also, bounce, right? So you have all these scenarios that happen out there. So what you have to do is you just have to be in a situation where you at least understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how to be in a position to predict it and be part of it. So for instance, right now we're going to be looking at a 3-minute time frame because we need to see a 3-minute time frame just because we need to see what the volume currently is actually doing, right? So right here you see this volume that's spiking here, and you have your green moon, right? Now everybody knows, if you're in our Discord, right? If you're inside our Discord, everyone knows that our entry is based off the 3-minute green moon, and then from there, you have your entry, and then that's pretty much it. So right here we have a nice little push that's happening, and now that we have that, we have to see if there's anything else that is going to maintain that push or cause it to continue in the direction it's going, especially when it's in a position that is so like I would say not weak, because this is a very weak position, because you can see here that we've had a big pullback, right? And once you have a big pullback, there's always a bounce, and there's always another retest, right? So you can see there's support here, and it's going to test this probably at least one or two more times. So during that, there's going to be volatility in here. That's why having starting points or what we call possible trade indicators, right? Which is just a trigger that's telling us that lets us know that we're trading in the momentum and the way of the masses, right? So if you're in the Discord, you know that we use our RSIs for that to understand where we're headed. So here, there's a 10-minute trade moon that's coming up possibly. And that'll cause that's a jump that we want to see. But that's kind of far apart. Now, but we also see here that, and the reason why I mentioned it being far apart is because if it's far apart, that means it could take a little longer to get there, which means the lower time frames like the 3-minute, 5-minute could have their RSIs retest the bottom, keep pulling back before they actually go up. And this is why entering, too early a lot of times is an issue. Just be patient, because during those times, you're always going to have the opportunity to get a entry on a 3-minute. On the 3-minute. So let's say, for instance, we're tracking 15 minutes, right? And you see here, you have a 15-minute RSI, which causes this bounce, right? That's the bounce that comes down and let me move this over here, because that's the big move that we were looking for. And if you go watch the video I just posted, you can see that we were looking for this 179.50 area. So this is the full pullback that we were waiting for in the morning. Once we get that pullback, then we go back into the new bounce. Then we get a retest of that support. And then from there, now it starts to build its momentum, right? Which is, this is where what we call, people will say, going sideways, doing a channel, a parallel channel, right? And this is where people don't know, and it's not the people, it's the market makers. The market makers are not in this trade down here right now, because this is the retail investors deciding, are they going to sell more? Is this where they buy? And then what the market makers are looking to see is, how much are the normal people buying, and is it enough to go up? A lot of times you can see here that the volume's getting low. So that's like looking at our situation here. Like, so we have profits in these situations, and this is why you always want to take profits when you see those jumps, because you see here, you go from a 23-24% gain, which is about 100 something, and then you go back down to 30 bucks, right? So a lot of times, taking that top profit and then repositioning down here, start getting yourself a rhythm of like, okay, I want to make a 20%, 22% on the trades. That's $100 and some. That's enough, if I do that 10 times, because you could be tracking this trade for 3-4 hours and do that 10 times just in that trade. And that's why, understanding where you're at currently, this is a situation of consolidation, right? No market makers, they're all sitting back waiting to see what the market's going to do if retail investors are done selling, right? If paper hands are done. And that's pretty much it. And we can see here in our 3 moves, we have our move down, bounce, move down. And you can see we're having our, let me see, what positions am I getting here? There we go. And what they're doing is, this is just the market makers letting the market, what they say, let the market do what it wants to do. And these bounces that you see are simply limit orders, right? So they're inevitable. So when people don't understand that, or understand why bounces come or what's happening in the market, it's just that people who don't understand the market are setting orders or limit orders in certain areas, and some of them are good support areas and resistance areas, and it just ends up being, you know, not a good overall time frame. Like for instance here, we can see that it's starting to show weakness here in this bounce, and we don't have our 2-hour RSI headed up, right, which is not a good thing. And we can see that the 4 hours headed here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to close out of this long and actually go into a short position here. Because we can see right now that the market is it has a 4-hour pullback, and the hands are the paper hands are you know, kind of sliding in here. But right now, if you're doing a, you know, holding a long position in there, it's not a bad spot to hold because you have a lot of support there. So the market is going to have where it's gonna try to support you in this situation where it's gonna keep that support. So far it's been holding that support, as you can see. It's bouncing here and there. And we have one more, and for us we're riding this last 4-hour pullback, because the main trade that we want to do is our 4-hour long, right? And the reason why we have a 4-hour long is basically, you know, just trade the most effective trade. And that's just the most effective trade. So right now this is like trading, what we call riding the waves. So, and that's where we're at right now. So in this position here, this is why having the student trade or the 4-hour master trade just allows you to be very, it's just to get all this what they call like turbulence and these, you know, crazy wicks. You can see right here on the 1 hour, you just got like the last 4 candles. I mean, these wicks are too crazy here. Look at these wicks, wick, wick, wick. It's not, man. We're just in a situation where the market isn't super stable. So this is the tip, is to get out of all the situations where you're trading in a situation where you're unsure, you know, or emotionally. You need to have a system and steps that you follow to make sure that you're trading within your system. So the first thing for us is we want to have a 2-hour RSI headed up. And sometimes it's not even, if you want to kind of get ahead, we have the RSI, which is here, and we have what's called the Making Trading Easy indicator. You can see right here, the VC Making Trading Easy Moon indicator. What we're looking for is we need this orange line, which is just basically a more sensitive RSI, and this is more based on money, right? The RSI is based on the market sentiment. This is based on the money sentiment, right? So the money is more important than the RSI. The RSI just kind of lets you know that the money is pushing it up. So let's go to the 45-minute here. And we can see that the 45-minute is also, you know, having a moment where it wants to continue to correct. this support here at the 180 seems, looks like it's gonna hold, I would say. You know, I think that our initial, and you can't be too sure on this, but I think our initial move here, long, is going to hold here and actually build, because you're starting to get these supports. So if this continues to happen, we're going to see these RSIs and everything move a little bit quicker because the market makers are going to start to see that right now the people, the retail investors, are setting up pretty easily here. And they're deciding that 179.97 is a good entry. But the issue that we're holding here, that we're faced with, is, see on the 5 minute here. There we go. I was going to say this. See how that line was headed down? Now that it's popping up here, that gives us more faith in this trade that it's going to hold this position. So if you're in that long position, you should be good there. Not for us. We're just going to, and it's okay if you're like in a trade and you're like, you know what? A lot of these things are up and down. I'm going to let this market reset real quick, and then we're going to go a little bit heavier. The thing about trading with margins is we can always increase our margin. Like here, we're trading at 79. We can go up to 90. Over here, we're trading with 40. We'll move this up to 50 when it's time to actually make the next trade. That'll make up for the little pullbacks that we had there. So now what we're going to do is just wait for this next pullback. Yeah, just wait for this pullback to come back here, and we're going to see where it settles. So for us, is we're waiting for a signal, right? And the signal that we're waiting for is we need this 1 hour to be, heading up in the right direction. And then we need the 2 hour to, follow into it. And this is why if you're getting in at these lower levels, or fighting with these, crazy support and resistance areas, what you would do here is you could do something very simple. You could say, okay, I'm on a heavy support. It does look like I have my 1, 2, 3 move. And normally, we all know that we're going to get at least a 1, 2, 3 move. And the 3 move is normally bigger, right? So here's our first move. Here's our second move. And then this move right here should have been the biggest move that happened. And you can see that it consolidated in this area. See right there, it consolidated right there. So the 3 wave that we always jump into, our 3 wave right here, 1, 2, 3, our third step, showed that that's the support at 180. So that's a good sign that it could hold there. Now the other thing I was going to say is we could take a look at the previous, and this is a 2 hour time frame. We could take a look at the previous pullback, and we can see here that this current 180 is a good support area. So that's why a lot of people are putting their limit orders there. So that's a lot of people buying there. And then the next support, if it does come down, is this area here. Now this is kind of like what we teach in boot camp. This would be a how to that's what I wanted here, price. Okay. All right, so this will be kind of like to understand like the full pullback. So if this area doesn't hold, which it's possible to break down the next couple hours, but if that area doesn't hold, the next area is going to be, in this section here, right? I'm looking at about a 177.96. Now what I can do here is I can measure this out, right? And this is called limiting risk. And all you're going to do is you're going to, let me show you the left side here. And now once we determine, our levels of support and resistance, even if we went down here and said, this is a heavy, area of support or resistance, or even this lower area, and then the top of that area right there. Okay. Now we can see these are just levels that it could possibly go to. I don't think it's going to break through this 180. I think we're in a good position here because we broke below it. It's bouncing up, so it looks pretty good. But just to kind of like limit risk, you just go over here to your tool, click on the side here on the left, get your long position, and just measure from that 177 to the current entered position. So you have a 1.30, right? Which means this, whatever your multiplier is, which means whatever your margin is, whatever your leverage is, it's going to be times that. So worst case scenario, if it breaks through and it goes down to this next level of 176, you're looking at a 1.3 pullback. So if you're doing a 20x leverage, that is a 24% pullback, right? Which would just be 20 times 1, and then that's 30%, or 30% of the 100, right? So that's what, 33. So a full 20, just take 1/3 of 20, which would simply be like, let's say 6 or 7, right? So this would be a 7, right? So 7, 14, 21, right? So this is this point there. Think of it as 31% of your 20. So let's say 6. We'll just do a 6. So this is 1 times 20 and 6. So this is a 26% pullback at a 20x. If it pulls back to the furthest it could possibly go on a 20x, this would be 2046. So the basic stop loss would be 26 on that first pullback and 46 on the entire pullback. So this is where you can say to yourself, okay, what can I put as a trade, and what should my stop loss be, and what's my risk here, right? So normally your stop loss is going to be 30, which is what we teach, 30, 30, 30. Here you would change your leverage from 30 to 20, because you're going to try to limit your risk of getting stop loss on this bigger pullback, which more than likely probably going to be the most it's going to pull back. So if you took this entry here, you would do a 20x leverage with a 30x stop loss, and then from there you would be set up. Now from this position you would say, okay, if it does go down here and it decides to make its moves, it would push up and retest here, the 182, pull back to the 180, and then push up to this next higher high. So the total move that we're looking for from Solana is around let's just kind of go to the level here where it has support or resistance right here, which would be this level here. And you can see that would be 188, right? So that means if we take this move, it's a 5% move. So if you're doing a 20x leverage, you still have the possibility over the next day, 2 days, to hit a 100x with a 20x leverage. So it's not a bad situation to make a trade, right? So when you guys can learn this is the simple risk and reward 1, 2, 3 steps, and this right here will teach you to understand how to limit your risk and actually see if it's worth the reward. And the only reason we can do this is because we know that we have a 1, 2, 3 opportunity. Can you white lines? Can I white lines? What you mean? Can you white line? What, you want these? You want these lines to be white? Let me get a white line. I mean, I don't know where you're gonna get a white line, man, but that's probably gonna be in Miami or the club, bro. All right, so this is kind of like a boot camp type scenario. You know, we run a thing called boot camp, and this is where we teach you like how to understand your risk versus reward, right? So now let's just go execute this trade because we're pretty sure we're in a good position here. And I'm just going to go over to copy trading here, and I'm just going to execute this trade. So here we go. We have a 180, right? Here's a 180. We need to be a little bit higher than that. So we're going to cross out, do 180.70. We're going to do what we were talking about, which is we're going to run this at a 20x leverage. Right? And then we're simply going to take that trade and we're going to run it at a 30% stop loss and a 100, and I think what we say, what was the take profit? 188.12. All right, 188.12. All right, so hold on. I'm just getting all these things set up here. All right, so we're going to go to 188.12. Right, so let's go there. So 188, right, is going to give us an 82% gain, which would give us a $500 trade. So we're just going to hit confirm, and that's it. That trade is there. That's going to be a copy trade, and there we go. That trade's set. And you can see on here, our stop loss is way down here. So even if the worst case scenario comes in here, we should be able to survive that. And if you keep moving your chart, right, and you keep having the line pop up, right, if you're here and you're like, I can't move my chart, right, just Control Z twice, go to this little plus sign, and then you can move your chart again. Okay, so that trade is set. This is our, I don't know if you guys have copy trading, but we do copy trading. Okay, now I'm going to head over here. This is a little bit different. This is our this is where we're going to be making our high leverage trade, and we're going to do 90x, and we're going to ride this up here because we're pretty sure that the original thought here was that we were long on Solana, and a lot of times I don't like to go live while I'm trading, simply because while I'm teaching and all these things, it just becomes too much to I just don't like to be in a trade that I'm not currently like really physically invested in, and then having to look at all these things. Okay. Now this should bounce off here and actually head the other direction. Now this is a trick, guys. If you are in the Discord and you have our moon indicators, if you kind of want to see where you're going, go to the 4 hour, get yourself the line, and put the line across. You see right there? Put it across the current volume, right? Let me blow this up for you. Okay, take your moon indicator, put it at the bottom of that line. Because if you're curious to see if the volume, see how it's trying to make a moon here? It's still pretty far apart, right? But if you want to see that where this is like the momentum of like the 4 hour, meaning that is it going to hit a 4 hour moon and cause a big drop, or is it going to reject and start to head the other direction and cause it, go the other way? So you can put a line there, right? And you can name it. You can go to settings just so you don't forget and put the 4-hour volume. 4-hour volume, right? And then that way, every time you come back, you can see if it's further getting closer to the moon or if it's going up, meaning that your long ideal or what you're thinking is going to happen is still credible. Right. That's the way to, like, put yourself in that volume position. That's just a little and don't forget to tap the screen, guys. Tap the screen. We need to get to 100,000 likes. So if you don't have the moon indicators, you can head over to vccryptonation.com or VC Crypto Nation YouTube, and there's a video called Welcome. Okay, so guys, if you're in the Solana long we called earlier, you're still in a great position, and that's the move we're going to make. Yeah, so we're going to ride that through. Okay, so now that we got all that set up, I'm not going to make any more changes on my trades. We're all set up here. We're happy. We were right the first time. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So now, that little tidbit there was just kind of like to, give you a scenario of if these things happened, how to estimate and limit risk, and how much of a pullback would happen, how to create a leverage position that would allow you to, protect yourself. So let's say that you're going to work, you're going to bed, you're doing something that you can't watch the trade, right? This is where you have to limit risk. You have to kind of understand what you're doing. So this is why I wanted to kind of like show that for you. There you go. You're back in action, boys. And I just wanted to show you that because a lot of times it's a very critical thing because you're caught in the middle, right? And most of the time you can't be a person that's like waiting for the perfect setup, because we have a setup that we do and it's not quite set up yet. It's not quite ready yet, but you might have, big pullbacks and all these things that happen. And yeah, you might be in a situation where you're like, oh, you know what? This is, where this is the pullback that they called. I'm setting my my pullback and my stop loss. But this will give you the idea of how to just take it. And remember, this is a 2-hour. Two-hour time frame. You have your level, you have your next level, and you have your worst case scenario level, right? Here you can see that we had already hit the bottom level. So this was the top of the channel. Yeah, and this is just a channel. So if people talk about parallel channels, I'll show you real quick what this is. You can see that here's your bottom of your parallel channel. And then to the top, you would have a channel where you originally had support or resistance, would be around this area here. And then you have your channel set up right there. So you can see where your support and resistance are. You don't have to be a super trader or anybody special to go to the side and just kind of like go, okay, this was where the, you could find these things like, oh, that's where it bounced before. Oh, that's where it bounced before. Oh, that's where it bounced before. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you have this one in here, this little meaty one. And then you could just take your lines and go, okay, All right, you can see that this is an area that, you know, showed resistance, and that's just the top of the, in this particular moment, this is just the top of the resistance that was there before, right? Somewhere in this zone here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Here you can see the bottom, right? You can see the bottom, you know, simple. And you can just draw a line from this previous bottom and draw it straight across. And that's where we, you know, got our basic setup for the current support. And then the lower support where we actually had our entry set up was here. We can see that there. So that's all it is. And then you just go through that system that we just told you how to say, okay, if I'm entering here on this support, if it pulls back to this support for some reason, just measure that pullback and say, okay, if it pulls back from my current entry, it's going to pull back 1.3%, right? So that means if I did a leverage of 20x, that would pull back 28%. So my stop loss has to be at least 32, right? All right, and that means you also can only use a leverage that's at 20. If you use the 30x leverage, this would be a 38% pullback, which means your stop loss would have to be 40. But what's important here is going, okay, if this bounces and goes up and it reaches the last high point of 188, it's a 5% move. So if I did a 20x, that's 100%. If it reaches half of that, which is, all right, so let's say you want to do a 50% gain, right, which would be 2.5, all right, then all it has to do is reach the last area that had a little bit of support, which more than likely it's going to do because it has to create a channel here. So more than likely, this is the, what we call the channel. So the odds are that if it bounces from here, it's going to then bounce up here off the top of these last areas here, and it should be hitting this area up here, but we're going to take the lower side right here and even lower, because you don't want to just think that you're going to make the greatest call ever. You want to say worst case scenario, if it bounces up to here, which is simply the 182.62 mark. If it does that, now you can see from your entry point, if it does go all the way down to here and bounces up to here, it's a 2.6, right? So measuring from your current entry to that bounce position, we can see that we have a 1.39, which means 20% would be a 20x leverage is now, instead of it being, it's actually, let's see how funny it's a 1.39. So you had a 28% move back, and now if it goes up from this position, just hitting the box there, you're going to have a 28% return, right? And that's kind of like the worst case scenario. You'll make 28%. Now, why is this important? Yeah, parallel channel. This is important because you are basically estimating your risk and reward. So your risk here is a 30%, 32%, 31% stop loss. So let's say you had $1,000. Okay, let's get serious though. Let's say this should be a $2,000 trade. Okay. Now, the trade that we teach is the 1, 2, 3. This is the beginning of the 1, right? It's hard to locate a 1. So just so you can understand our system is this. Find a step 1, let it retest, and then the retest is step 2, enter the retest, and then ride step 3, which is the third wave up, which is will always return to the top of the first wave. So wave 1 is step 1, and it has a top. Wave 2 pulls back, right? We're riding the waves. Wave 1 goes up, wave 2 pulls back 50 to 70%, and then we enter that pullback and ride it back to the previous high of wave 1. And we measure that so that we can understand how much we can make. So let's say that, and I'll do an example here for you so you can kind of understand what I'm saying. Okay. So this is what we do. This is the system that we teach. So when we get an alert, okay, don't forget to share the live, guys. Share the live. We need to get to 100,000. Share the live. Okay, we're in Solana Long right now. Okay, we're in Solana Long. If you're listening to us and you're paying attention, okay, if you're listening to us and paying attention, right, there we go. We're already up 38%. Okay. All right, if you're listening, that's our high leverage trade, and then this is the trade that you could actually get into. This is, if you're following me, right, and how you follow me is you go to, if you need, and I'm in the U.S. The only, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just what I use. So what I use is called BitNex. It's the only exchange that I use. No VPN, no KYC. But what's important about this is when you sign up with this referral code, you can screenshot this, is when you sign up with that referral code, you can actually copy trade me. Meaning that you follow me, I make trades, and then you make profit. So my copy trade, the guys who are following me are up 10%. Okay, and if you, that's where that is. Okay. So hit the lives. Crypto Slayer, what's up, man? And share the live. Hit the shares. And this is where I have to kind of like be a little quick on my decisions here, because we're in the middle of trading, but I also there we go. I also have to watch trades. Okay, so let's get back to what I'm talking about here. What's up, brother? How you been, man? All right, so the system here, Crypto Slayer. Okay, so this is what we teach here. So hit the likes, man. So just to kind of go out there, if you guys are here, then I don't ever really go live anymore. Back in 2021, I used to go live for 36 hours, 24 hours a day. It was crazy. I used to sleep online. That's because I was so excited about crypto in 2021, and we were making shitloads of gains, and yeah, it was just a good time. But most people didn't know how to do what we were doing, so we spent a lot of time just teaching. Yeah, we're just teaching and stuff. So it was fun to teach and fun to do all those things. So if you're on this live, man, then you gotta kind of like facts. Yeah, that's right, brother. And I like when all the people that used to follow me and we made a lot of money. They're always like, man, VC, I haven't seen you in a long time. Well, I'm back. I'll be back until November, maybe January, maybe through November, just to set you up on shorts. But I'm going to show you how the system that we have and how we trade, and so you can get this. So this is what I mean by this, right? We're going to have a thing. This is called a wave 1. Okay, and I'm just just gonna type it on here. Wave 1, right? I'm just gonna put this in here for you. And if you're new to trading, hit 1s in the chat. Guys, if you're new to trading, hit 1s in the chat. If you haven't traded or trying to learn to trade, hit 1s in the chat. Okay. This is gonna be wave 2. If you're in my Discord and you're already in the Discord, hit 2s in the chat. Okay. And you know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and hit 2. All right, so okay. So here's what we have, man. Sender. Okay. Sender, you're in the Discord, bro? Sender. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about right here. Okay? This is a very simple thing. I'm going to back this up so you guys can have a bigger view. So this is a super buy system, so that you can understand what I'm saying when I'm talking about things, right? So the first thing is locating wave 1. Okay, and wave 1 is just the reversal of what the market is currently doing, right? Wave 2 is the retest slash pullback. Okay, and wave 3, that's our buy wave. Okay. All right, and let me go find my little thing. Okay, and I'm gonna put this over here, just so everyone knows and TikTok knows that this is not financial advice. This is just how I trade and the system that I teach, and this is my personal trading system. And tell Calvin Hill, when he steals this and tries to sell it to you in an ebook, that VC said stop it. Okay, and if he's gonna take my shit, he should at least talk to me first before he starts selling it in ebooks. Okay, because I'm gonna start calling people out. They start taking my stuff, selling it in ebooks for $500 and not giving me recognition. At least give me recognition. At least, give me recognition at least. All right. Oh, what'd you see, Tony? Are you talking about in the Discord or on Calvin's shit? All right, so here, let's get through this and we'll piece together the basics here. All right, here's how it goes. The very first wave, right, is the wave that you have to locate, and there's ways to locate the wave. Okay, and we have certain things that we use, indicators and stuff like that, that allow us to find wave 1 reversals. Okay, it lets us know when wave 1 reversal is being created and when it's strong enough to actually be it's an actual a pure wave 1, right? Now after wave 1 goes, what most of you guys do is that you ride the wave 1 and you got a really good entry, and then you're like, this thing's going to the moon, and then all of a sudden, right, wave 2 comes, right? And wave 2 comes, and that's the retest and the pullback. Now normally there's always going to be a pullback, right? That's going to be at least 50%. Okay, So whatever wave 1 is, it's going to be 50%. And if it pulls back further than 70%, then that's not a real wave 1. So those are the fundamentals. Okay, so that's the fundamentals. Okay, you guys understand that? That's the basics. So in order for our wave 1 to actually be real, when it pulls back, it can't pull back further than 70%. It can't be like a 90% pullback. That's not a wave 1. But the average pullback is always going to be 50. Now, what that means, so everywhere that I trade, guys, everywhere I trade, is I only trade on BitNex. It's the only exchange that I use. And if you look at my videos, it's the first pinned video, and it's the only one that I trade on there. Okay. Now what I have to do here is, because this is a possible one trade here, but we're gonna let the other trade run. But I need to watch my high end trade. Okay, so what happens is, this is why you have to sell wave 1, right? So every time there's a bounce, it's not going to the moon. It has to pull back, okay? And when it pulls back, the reason why it's pulling back is because if it is a true wave 1, the market makers, the people that control the market, are creating what's called a buy zone. Which is where you get in on a pullback, a retest, or some reason to get into the trade. Okay. Now, once they see the volume, right, and we use indicators and things that show us the volume, once the market makers see that the pullback is bringing in enough people volume-wise, meaning that you're paying attention to that coin, all right, then what the market makers do is now they take advantage of it, and they put their big buys in this area down here, so then it starts taking off, because remember, they sold in this area here. So they made, let's say they put 10,000, 50,000, let's say they put 100,000 here. This moves up $100,000, right? This is let's say a 2% move, right? 2% move. And they're doing a 10x, right? That means on this move here, they've made 10% on their move, right? So 10% up, 100 grand, 10,000. They're just touching the water. Then they sell 50% of their position, right? And then what happens is they see, right, or they actually, what they do is, the real number is they sell 35% of their position. And then that creates people to panic and then sell, okay? And they drive the market down from 30% down to 50. Then the market makers start buying in this buy zone here, because as soon as they notice if you're buying here, they start buying here, because now they're making this extra money here. Because remember, they're controlling the market. Right? Now you start to see it level and find support, and then you start FOMOing it. So now they sold 30%. They put that 30% back in here. Right? And they're going to add another 50% of the position. So they're going to take 30 of 100,000 and add another 50,000. So they're going to put another 80,000 in this position. That's going to cause a wave 3. Now wave 3 is always the biggest wave, because when this starts to fly right here and it reaches this position, right, and it hits this position, which it always returns to, right? Let's say they can measure this out, and they can say, okay, if it goes back to its previous position, I'll show you how easy this is. I want you to understand that you need to understand what they do, so that once you understand what they do, then you'll understand what's happening, okay? So this position here moves 5% back up. They know that if just like I just showed you how to limit risk and et cetera, if they know that if they do a 20x, when it goes back up just to that top, they made 100%. When it hits that 100%, they're going to now sell 50% of their position as people are FOMOing in, right, on wave 3, right? So once it hits here, they're going to sell again on wave 3, which will cause a small pullback. Now keep in mind, they started with 100,000, then they added another 50, so they're in for 150,000. And so on this one move here, this move up, this is 80 plus 70, it's 150,000. They just made 150,000 on this one move. They sell 50% and leave 75,000 in. And FOMO, what's caused you guys to buy here, and then that will be the first small pullback, and then wave 3 will continue on, okay? Now normally this will move at least half of that first move, right? Which is another, from that point, another 2%, 3%, which means they're making 60% on the other 75,000, which is another 40,000. So at the end of the day, when they walk away from this, they've made back 100 to 150%. And if you guys FOMO in hard, they can make up to 200%. But that's a $100,000 move. So every time they make this move, that's what they get. And what you want to do is you want to become a market maker where you do the same moves that the market makers are doing, and you start with 1,000. Then eventually you make enough money to that you do 10,000. Okay? That's what you need to learn. This is the system that we teach. This is the system I created over the last 10 years. This is what we teach. This is what we educate. Okay? That's simple. It is, yeah, that's it. Now you can see here, this is our 4-hour. This is for my students. Notice here, if I zoom in here, notice that the 4-hour volume is actually going up. You see that? You see that, guys? You see that little Benny? See? Yeah, it used to be here. So that's letting me know that I don't have to worry about this 4-hour moon. It's actually retracing, and it's starting to head the other way. Okay? That's a boot camp tip for you guys. All right, so now I'm going to get back to where we were. We're on the 4-hour, 2-hour. Man, I think we're on the 2-hour. Okay. What was it over here? Okay, it was over here. Okay. So that is the system. This is called the Making Trading MTE, Making Trading Easy. Okay, this is VC system, and this is basics, right? Very simple. Now I'm going to slide over here. Take a screenshot if you want. Control copy. Control paste. Oh. Control paste. Oh, there you go. Click here. There you go. Okay. There you go. So, any questions or anything like that, screenshot, and I am available right now. So in the US, do that right now. Because only when I'm live do I really answer any information. So right now, if you have any questions, want to know anything, you're not in the Discord or whatever, here you go. The only two ways that I will answer questions are right here. Take a screenshot. And other than that, inside my Discord. Now, what we were talking about, oh, that's what I was going to show you. Somebody asked something about copy trading or something. So, come down here, you can see. Okay, so you see right there, you can screenshot that. This is what we use right here. So this is, like I said, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is the exchange that I use, just like what I use for my charts is TradingView. This is the tool that I use in the USA. Right there. Take a screenshot. Right there. That's the referral code you want to use right there. Okay. All right. And then after you sign up, if you're going to use this, you guys take your screenshots. How many people taking screenshots? Hit ones in the chat. J-Mo, we need to get you in the Discord, bro. You need to call me, man. No KYC. Okay, no K, bro. The reason why we use this, I use this because there's no KYC, no VPNs. Okay, now, once you have that, right, you can come over and do what's called copy trading. Because once you're in there, you can find me, okay? And with that referral code, you can find me with that code, okay? So now, All right. So TikTok has a gambling ban. So we're gonna keep going on our live here, and I'm just gonna finish this up for you guys. So let's see what we got here. So that's for you guys inside the Discord already. This is a simple system that we use. Wave 1 reversal, wave 2, but that's a way to explain it. So now you guys can maybe see this video and go, okay, that makes, now I'm really like, you know, I know you already get it and already understand it, but that's where we have it. Now you guys understand our ins, our outs, and all those good things. And that's pretty much it. So now, you know, just finding our levels and so forth, watching the other videos, waiting for the 2 hours, waiting for the different types of supports. The tip in the track that we showed today was simply, you know, how to look at your 4 hour and then, you know, put your 4 hour volume in there so that you can see, you know, is it gaining, is it losing, or what's it doing for you? And then you can come back later where you have your 4 hour and just to kind of like measure it out. Open it up. Let's just open it up fully. You know, double click, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put my next one here. All right, and that's just so I can know where it was and then where it went. So I'm watching the levels as it moves, so that I can see like if it's continuing to move in the direction that I want. Okay, that's pretty much it. All right, guys. So good luck, God bless. I'm gonna cut this off here and then go look at some more videos that we can have. Just make sure you're staying within the rules that we have, and I'm gonna, you know, make some videos on that just so it's a little more clear for everyone.